I always love to see you again as I'm looking into this camera, associating the lens with all the experiences of interacting with friends and strangers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How many times have I said in this video and podcast series, you are a divinely created, infinitely loved son or daughter of the God who indwells you by his Spirit right now. Infinitely loved. And I'm thinking today of that commandment of Jesus, where the night before he was betrayed and put to death, his new commandment was love one another as I have loved you. It was clear that there is a fullness of love that comes with the willingness to lay down your life, as Jesus did for his actual and potential friends. So how do we prepare ourselves to do likewise, to fulfill the fullness of his invitation to love as he loves? I remember a student who was a young guy, a strong guy, a guy of compelling character. He was a veteran. And as we were discussing what he could do for his practice, his exercise, his project in the course, to develop himself on some ethical frontier of of his choosing, we got into a conversation. We started to talk about the spiritual life a bit. And I intimated that there was some advanced spiritual teaching. And he said, well, what is that? I want that. And I said, you're not ready for it yet. And in the course of the conversation, he talked about how, as a veteran, he'd come to the point of being willing to lay down his life at a moment's notice for a fellow soldier. And he still felt that way about veterans. And I challenged him with the idea of doing a project that would take that willingness to lay down his life and extend that to the brotherhood of man, the siblinghood of humankind, to everybody. And he went for it. He said, I'll do that. And I said to him, if you do that and you pull that off, you'll be ready for the advanced course, and you can teach me the advanced course. And what he did was begin to look for opportunities to do just second miler total service for another person, a stranger, not someone that he had any particular attraction for or friendship for. And he started out with this old lady who was living by herself on the corner house right next to him. And she was in ill health and had a house that was a mess and needed cleaning up. And he went to her, he hardly knew her, just a bit, and he cleaned up her house. And after that, he looked around for other people that he could help in major ways. And he started doing this. And by the end of the semester, he was there. And he got the advanced lesson. And we didn't stay in touch, but he stays in my mind. And my question is, how do we prepare ourselves to love as Jesus loved? There are different kinds of courage. There's physical courage, there's intellectual courage, and there's spiritual courage. They are not disconnected, but you can be strong in one and not so strong in another. And there are training programs for courage. For example, I mean, basic training for a soldier is training in courage in important ways. And there's, I mean, I'm thinking of the story that I remember of that Korean flight attendant who was interviewed after the July 10, 2013 rescue effort that she engaged in with other flight attendants on the Asiana Airlines flight that crash landed and burst into flames, and this 100-pound Lee Jung-hee carried 4 passengers going back into this plane that was on fire and smoky and dark, getting these passengers out. And the story, you've got the link in the blog post to it, the story about her, as it was portrayed in the news, simply featured the training program, the 180 hours with 22 hours devoted to emergency evacuation, and how the head of the flight crew was expert in that. And the training is so important. And then there's intellectual training, and Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics, book 3, chapters 6 through 8 are all on courage. And I couldn't find my detailed notes, but I'm going to put in a link to the notes that I do have on the Nicomachean Ethics and expand on those for my blog post once I settle down and write that. And there are the spiritual exercises of Ignatius of Loyola. And there's just the study of the Gospel according to John, chapters 13 through 17, and more. And what I suggest to you is that any training that we can do, there's the Alice training, Alice, www.alicetraining.com, live link on the blog post. There's for groups that prepare the members or the leadership group for active shooter training. How do you respond? And I suggest that any training, any preparation works best when we mobilize all our powers of mind, soul, and body on the task immediately in hand. A guy I used to work with talked about pre-made decisions. And it seems to me that perhaps the place to start as we develop ourselves and mobilize ourselves to love all the way as Jesus did is to make a decision something like this. If there is a situation where it is the will of God for me to lay down my life, I'm ready. All good to you, today and always. Amen.